All set?
What'd she say?
Okay, everybody's microphone's on?
Yeah.
Yes?
Is this thing on? That's true.
Okay, this, today is, it's March 4th.
Fourth, yeah.
This is a special meeting of the Woodbridge Board of Finance. It's a regular meeting? Oh, okay, it's a regular meeting for the purpose of
Oh,
reviewing the budget as changed by the Board of Selectmen, and we will move on from that. Since last we met, just a few housekeeping items. We've seen that the Woodbridge Country Club proposal is no longer on the table, something that we had mentioned as a possible boon to our grand list, but in all honesty, I think the Board of Selectmen did exactly what they had to do. To have the Wernick Group have the ability to sell off a portion of the land or whatever. I mean, the only thing I said is, why didn't they tell us this from the very beginning? And we could have saved a lot of time, because that would never happen. So again, I commend the Board of Finance for
Board of Selectmen.
I'm sorry,
You
Board of
can do the Board of
Selectmen.
Finance too.
Board of Selectmen, no, the Board of Selectmen for,
We're friends.
for ending the negotiations, and so we're back to square one with that. Needless to say, we're still faced with a very limited grand list, very minimal growth, and increased requests across the board. And what we're going to do tonight, we've given you some pages. Basically, I'm going to talk about this discussion that Tony and I had about a $12,000 tax bill. That's our creation. That won't take long. And then we have the Board of Selectmen highlights, where you can see what they did. And then a balance of items that Tony and I and Beth have talked about possibly looking at to hopefully keep the tax increase under 1%, which we've been doing right along. So if you want to just take a look at this sheet, which shows a I asked Tony to take a $12,000 tax bill, it's about $1,000, just $1,000 a month, and give us the amount of money that $12,000 would use for various categories. So as you can see, education, of the $12,000, if that were on your tax bill, of course this would change up or down. Education would cost us $7,406, or 62% of a $12,000 tax bill, meaning that approximately $4,600 of your $12,000 tax bill would go for everything else in town, such as, and these are some of the items, $552 for general government, public safety, which is fire and police and
EMS.
EMS,
Animal control.
right, $1,082. $632 of your $12,000 would go to the Public Works Department for keeping our roads
And the
and
tra- and the
whatever,
transfer
and the
station.
transfer station,
Yeah.
and the very fine transfer station. The library would cost a $12,000 taxpayer $193. Recreation, $165. Human services, $113. Employee benefits, $1,091. Debt service, $491, and capital, $273. So it's just a point of reference. I wanted to have everybody know that this is where your tax dollars go. And again, we have wonderful departments in this town. Our public works are, I don't want to start mentioning, but all these that we mentioned, we just have a wonderful group of people in this town, and we offer wonderful services, I believe, for the various citizens of the town. So just something for you to look at. Okay, I don't know if we necessarily want to, let's maybe highlight
I can
some
go through the highlights
of the Board of Selectmen. Yeah, why don't you?
Yep. So the Board of Selectmen budget is recommended, is resulting in a 3.24% expenditure increase and a 2.27% tax increase. Because of reval, the mill rate is up 6.16%, but I think in this year, it's not a fair comparison to last year because of the revaluation results. So I like to use the tax increase as sort of a guideline of where it's headed. So the first thing I'll go over is our revenue. Some of the revenue highlights. So we put in the revenue, the state governor's recommended budget, which is an increase of $35,000 in ECS funding for the town compared to our budget from last year. Another adjustment in the grant, in the intergovernmental revenue section is our estimate for special education excess cost grant, which is a reduction of $70,000. We work closely with the Board of Education on that figure. Those are sort of the highlights there. In department charges, the building permits were increased $60,000, mostly due to a recommendation from the building official that we institute a CO fee, which came up during our discussions, and the Board of Selectmen has indicated they would be interested in doing. The transfer station revenue is up $30,000 due to a fee for bulky waste at the transfer station. So right now you bring it in and you pay per cubic yard, which is not a very equitable way to do it. So we're going to charge by weight, which should generate an additional $30,000. Under other revenues, I think the big item here, a couple of items to note. One is we eliminated the tuition revenue, which is when the town is reimbursed for tuition for children to go to the school, over Beecher School. We receive tuition revenue from employees, usually employees, right, Al? Yeah, this from employees usually, or, yeah. So we're reimbursed for that, and so there are none projected for the upcoming year, so that was removed. And we had put in the entire Amity surplus, which is total $671,460. So that's an additional $450,000 over the prior year. One reason for that is their budget is going up rather significantly, and I think the discussion, we've discussed in the past about increasing the fund balance appropriation, and while that's a good discussion to have, I think in this year, because we're increasing the Amity surplus by such a large amount, should we not get any surplus funds next year, you would have $600,000 to make up. So that would be difficult to make up unless you increased your fund balance. So I think that's a discussion something to think about, is to offset a potential drop next year. You may have to increase fund balance next year to make up for that. Yeah. To increase 2 in 1 year, I think would be could be a problem for next year. Yeah. So those are the revenue adjustments. So that's an additional $500,000 in revenue if you total all those up.
Before you go on, would you speak again about the special ed reductions?
Sure. Every year, the Board of Education will. I work with the Board of Education Business Office to get an estimate on what they feel our excess cost funds will be for the following year, based on what their anticipated expenditures are for that year.
So they've reduced their estimate?
I'm imagining in large part because their special education costs have gone down. As a result, their revenue has also gone down.
So it's in parentheses, but we're actually adding it in?
Oh, okay, I see your point. If it's a negative, that means a revenue's going down.
Parentheses.
I know, but the revenue to,
Yeah, our excess cost revenue is projected to go down next year.
okay,
Large part because our expenditures are going down.
I see, yep,
Yeah.
got it now, yep.
Okay.
Okay, why don't you just highlight the most pressing changes to the operating budget? Obviously, the first one is major.
Sorry, can I just ask one quick question?
Sure, yeah.
When we were going through the budget, we had some of this stuff in there. Did anything change in terms of revenue that we didn't talk about the last time, or some of this is basically the same things that we should do? I remember we were sort of talking about what revenue was estimated to be.
For the
When we were going through the whole budget process in the beginning, I think you told us a little bit about that. So this is, we've seen some of these.
You mean at
numbers
one of the
before.
budget hearings when
Yeah,
we were
because-
interviewing?
Yeah, so I've
Okay.
changed a few of them, some minor changes, which I
Okay,
didn't
just
go
minor
through.
stuff.
Yeah, like, if you see them in there, like, I increased, private duty a little based on our private duty revenue trends. Some other fees, I increased to $700 on the center rental. Couple of minor things. I change them a little as I.
I was hoping you were going to find large sums of
Those are the ones I mentioned.
We're looking.
Okay. Okay, on the operating budget, I'd say one major adjustment was in the police department, the elimination of 2 vacant positions, about $205,000. That's probably the major item. There was also some other reductions in police related to the holiday pay. I think the budget was a little high there. We reduced it a little. Overtime and some training. As we discussed at the last meeting, we had put $40,000 in the info systems budget for IT, outside work, or for an outside consultant to do IT work at the town and at the police department. And we put the police portion, which is $40,000, into the police budget so that they would have some control and some ownership over that $40,000, and removed it from the IT budget. So that's just a wash. That's why you see it there twice. The fire department, there were a few adjustments in repair machinery and equipment. That's the item, the line that we see every year, that the fire department usually comes back to us if they have a lot of expenditures in that line. And part-time wages was eliminated. In public works, I discussed with Warren, he had in there $100,000 for tree removal and $100,000 for line painting. And I felt that in 1 year, that was probably something that we would want to look at. So we reduced it $50,000 to offset that and possibly do some of that work the year after.
Okay. Other adjustments, those are all miscellaneous?
Miscellaneous, a bunch of miscellaneous. There's like 15, 20 things in
When
there.
the time comes, we'll.
$1,000, $500, $1,000.
All right. So that leads us to page number 3, and again, Tony
And there's a capital budget. If you want to go through
Okay,
the
yeah, go
capital
ahead.
budget.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's probably easier if you look at the report. It's under, in the handout. We can just go through it by department. If you start at page 1, the wayfinding signs was put out till next year in the selectmen's budget. We eliminated the HVAC repairs at the library, and on hopes that if that's necessary, we have a library fund that we could take that from in the investment committee.
Okay.
And the senior center remodeling, we also removed from the budget. It's our hopes that we can apply for a steep grant, which is hopefully will be
We're
announced
hearing
soon.
they may be reinstituting them.
Yeah.
We'll see.
In the fire department, the Board of Selectmen pushed out engine 3 and engine 9 primarily because neither engine has even been ordered or approved yet. So even if they take a year to build, and then you fund them in a year in arrears, so the funding for those
We do a
would be.
lease purchase,
Yeah, so-
correct? So
correct,
we
yeah.
have it for a year before our first payment's due.
Right, and it takes a
So-
year to get the engine.
Exactly.
So, you're looking 2 years out probably in either of those. And, let's see. And the rescue boat was the one, was not funded. Human Services, the chairs for the cafeteria was put out for next year. And, the senior center car was eliminated, but we're hoping to get a vehicle from police department or other town department to accommodate that. In parks, there were 3 requests, irrigation at the center field, irrigation at West River, and bleachers at center field to put them on concrete. And while we thought all 3 were, would be nice things to have, there was items that we didn't think were critical. Under police, there were 2 requests for 2 speed trailers, one of which we recommended for funding, and the other selectmen did. And the other was 1 vehicle instead of 2 vehicles. And the door security, I put out a year, but I'm hoping, I think it's somewhat important. Hopefully this year we can fund that with some contingency funds if we have some, because I think that's important. Right now they have keys and they should have a more secure system. Public Works, we made some the big adjustment there is to road reconstruction. That's always a discussion every year, but that was reduced to $650,000. Under the truck reserve, Warren had requested a pickup truck and a Mason truck, and we funded the Mason truck, not the pickup truck. That's
That's
about
the
it.
one that's more necessary, apparently, after speaking.
And the one that was more,
Right.
when I talked to Warren, that's the one he needed more than the pickup.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
that's it?
That's pretty much it. Those are the major
Okay.
items.
All right. We can, I guess after we do this, did we come up with any capital stuff? What we're looking at? Couple of things, all right.
Should we ask questions about the Board of Selectmen proposals
Sure.
first?
Yeah, sure.
So, the two police positions being eliminated,
Yes.
how long have they been vacant?
One position has been vacant for quite a long time. I don't know the exact amount, but definitely since last year. The other has been since September. But they're periodically have vacant, one or two vacant positions there, just
Right.
through the nature of the operation.
And of course, if they find they really need an additional position,
They would
we
come
would
and
find
we
the money
would fund
and
it.
we'd do that.
Yeah,
And, so the positions are eliminated, but also the overtime is reduced.
just a little, yeah. I mean, that's something we can put back.
It's just an it's
It's just an
it's an
estimate,
so
really.
that's right.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
okay.
Okay, with that, why don't we go to the Finance Department budget adjustments for the Board of Finance to consider?
Oh, sorry.
I will, again, we've discussed these, so as long as I'm involved with them, I'll give you my take. The $70,000 vehicle is for the fire marshal.
Right.
And it's just, I mean, this is not the year, again, this is not the year to spend, I don't know what we're getting for $70,000. That's gotta be quite a vehicle.
Let's see if it says it in the description.
Yeah.
I know the vehicle's having a lot of
It's
trouble.
gotta be like an Expedition or something like that.
I know it's having a lot of trouble, but,
I honestly don't
Trouble
remember.
meaning a lot of upkeep, Tony?
yeah.
Current is a 2008 Ford Expedition. Doesn't say what they're talking about, but 70,000 is that's
It's a lot, yeah.
quite a vehicle, so.
Yeah.
I think for here, we'll, and again, I think, why don't we go through these and then everybody can either agree or disagree. The Lucas device, if you remember, that's the unit that does chest compressions. They have one. This is a more modern one. The problem I have with this, or we have with this, is that in questioning the chief, this goes on the AMR vehicle, which, if I'm having chest pains, it could be in West Haven, and they send another vehicle that doesn't have one of these things. So, I mean, if I knew it was going on, let's say, a rescue truck that the fire department controlled, and that thing's gonna come to my house or anybody else in Woodbridge, I'd be in favor of it. But the possibility that it's gonna be in an AMR vehicle servicing another townsperson, another town's, I'm not in favor of that, okay? Recreation, I think we're gonna be talking about the ongoing saga of this fitness center, which costs a lot of money and results in very little revenue. So we've taken the treadmill out.
I can tell you that, we had a petition
I'm
from
sure.
lots of
Oh, I'm
members
sure,
who wanted the fitness center to continue,
right.
and the Board of Selectmen felt that we should, do so.
There is a wonderful
So-
program at the JCC.
And
They've reduced it and reduced it again, and they could join a much better facility than what we have here for less money.
There are, I guess, members that have been there for
I'm sure.
years and
Well,
years and years, and they found it
Times
the
they
place
are
where they
changing.
found their first friends, I'm
Right.
just saying.
Yeah,
So the Board of Selectmen felt sympathetic and said we should continue the fitness center for a while
Well,
and see what happens.
we'll talk about it. but
Okay,
I just think
just given my
it's a lot of
take
money
on-
for a few people, and we'll discuss that.
Okay.
How many, do you know how many people use it regularly?
Very few.
Do we have a number?
Very few.
Was it 25 or
25, 30 maybe?
30.
25? I think one of the things that might be useful going forward is if the Board of Selectmen could talk to the JCC if there's any kind of.
They have. Well, I don't know if Board of Selectmen
About a
have.
Woodbridge, maybe for,
We've explored.
Bill
some.
Silverberg has gone there and
Right.
set it up. They could get 10 times better program for less money. I mean, it costs us, I remember at one point I said they had a $10 a month at the Planet Fitness, whatever that's called. So I said, let's see, 30 members, $10 a month, that's $300 a month, 12 months, that's $3,600. This is costing us like $35,000 to run this thing. I mean, the equipment here is, it's nothing special. So you could do it for so much less money I know, I mean, there's an emotional thing to it, but you know what? It's tough times, you know, we're trying to keep this budget under control and it's just, I feel for it, but.
I think what I'm thinking about here is, if the Board of Selectmen thought it was important now to do this, but we coupled it with a more aggressive effort to figure out some kind of compromise to work with the JCC, I mean, maybe these current members could have, maybe that's been explored, but I don't recall that. The current members have some special deal for a year or two at the JCC, so it doesn't feel so abrupt, but it does seem a shame. And I know also the JCC has a swimming pool that it would like to share with the town in some way in the summer. They just use it for summer camp, so it could be available for evenings and weekends. And now that the country club deal is certainly not happening in the near term, maybe we could just ask that the first selectman and the Board of Selectmen explore these things so that we can be moving that way.
As I recall, when they looked for evenings and weekends, there was a lot of backlash from the neighborhood. And then they went to plan and zoning, and I think it was turned down to be used, at least the outdoor pool. Did that happen?
So
It
I
was
can
the outdoor
talk a little bit about that, because
Yeah.
when I was
As I
on the
recall.
board of at the JCC, the agreement when they built the summer camp was that the pool could only be used for summer camp hours. And when there was some talk about the JCC expanding it, there was a big to-do with the neighbors behind it, and then it went to zoning.
Right,
it was
and I
turned
think
down.
it was turned down at that point, so it'd have to be revisited,
Right.
Right.
Well,
And
it's
it-
worth,
it's definitely
seems
worth
like it's worth revisiting, just to, maybe people would like it.
I can tell you, Bill Silverberg's worked extensively on this, and he's got a program in place that they don't want to park and have to walk, I've heard. They like parking right here and walking up the stairs, you know.
Well, maybe it won't.
not for nothing, we're conflating the continuity of the fitness center here with the cost of a treadmill. And it's really two separate issues that we're talking about, right? I mean,
But
we're
yeah,
not
I
gonna,
was-
we're not gonna set policy
Actually,
today on what's
eliminating
gonna
replacing
happen with the
treadmills
recreation people.
doesn't eliminate the fitness center.
Correct,
No,
we're just
that's
talking,
true.
this is
So-
just
Right.
about the
Couldn't agree
cost of
more.
a new treadmill.
Correct.
This is
Right.
not
Right.
about setting policy or a different path
Right.
Correct.
for the recreation center,
Right.
okay? So we're saying that, or at least the suggestion is that $12,000 for a new treadmill is not a good use of town funds at the moment. That's what we're saying, okay.
Got it.
Okay.
Can we go, so we're gonna discuss these when we hit the departments, or?
No, go ahead. No.
So, it just, I guess the question on the Lucas device, I get that the current setup we have, which is not desirable, that AMR could get pulled out of town to go to another town, right? Could the Lucas device be carried with the medic? Because we don't lose the medic, do we? The medic is in town.
We sometimes lose the medic to other towns. It's rare.
How often is that compared to the actual ambulance that we?
10%.
Yeah, 10% of the time.
10% of the time?
Yeah.
What percentage of the time do we lose the ambulance to another town?
Well, we don't have an ambulance dedicated to
I understand
Woodbridge,
that, but,
so it would
but-
not be on the
It
ambulance.
would be on the medic.
Yeah,
so it'd
it's
be on the medic, so
medic's
10% of the
vehicle.
time we lose the medic.
I think it was 10%.
Yeah, something like that.
I just have a hard time with, I mean, the Lucas devices save lives, and
Well,
that's
we have one,
Yeah, we have one.
the
Right.
question is, do we need a
upgraded.
But again, that's also on an AMR vehicle, so.
good point?
Right,
So
so
it
it's-
gets lost
yeah,
10% of the
right.
time.
If
The
I'll say
current
this,
one.
if I knew right now, guaranteed, it's in town, if somebody has chest pains and needs it and it goes to them, I'd vote for it. But I talked to Sean about it and he said, you don't know where it's gonna be. It could be anywhere. I mean, they're not here all the
Is the
time.
way to carry it in a police vehicle? But, you'd have to know, it'd
Yeah,
have
you
to be
gotta know how to
moved from
use
police
it.
vehicle to police
Right,
vehicle.
right,
Yeah, you can't do
right.
that.
Well, I mean, in the morning or at shift change, and so theoretically, but
Yeah,
but they're not trained for that, right? They're MRTs, they're
Right,
not
yeah, right.
EMTs,
yeah,
so that's another
I'm
issue.
just thinking out loud.
I'm just curious how big a discrepancy and difference there is from the one we have to the new one. I take your point, Matt, if it's not here, it doesn't matter
Yeah,
which one we have.
He discussed that, it's a
But-
lot more automatic, it's a lot more, you know,
It's better.
yeah, it's the state of the art, and, yeah.
How long have we had the one,
Pardon me?
how long have we had the current one?
It's been a
A
while.
few years.
Wow.
Fire Association bought
Yeah,
that one.
fire-
Well, that's the other
We
thing, it
didn't
wasn't
buy
town
it.
funds that paid for the first one, so.
Yeah,
Right.
we didn't buy it.
Uh-huh.
So-
And again, I mean, we're discussing, we're gonna put, this can all change. We're gonna meet 2 weeks from tomorrow, our monthly meeting. We can make more changes. We're gonna go to the annual budget hearing and listen there. We can make more changes. This is just a start,
Uh-huh.
I think, to
Right,
get
no, I
us,
get that, I was
to get
just
us
curious
under,
about-
yeah.
Okay.
By just running down some of these others, and again, none of these are, but our superintendent gave us a pathway to zero in his budget, and it's 150, and this is on here. It's a staff reduction of an art teacher,
I have these here, so you can see.
yeah, staff reduction of a part-time library, school psychologist, a half position, instructional supplies, professional development, and technology equipment request, which totals 115,569.
So that was given to us by the superintendent?
It's in his budget.
Yeah,
It's in his budget.
there's a sheet right there, it's at the bottom.
Budget,
It's at the
presentation
bottom.
within the budget book.
Because as you know, we had asked for zero, and
Right, no, and I
it
said.
didn't come
it
in, and
was a
this
great
this
budget.
would get you to
Thank you.
zero, okay? Okay, next. And again, let me say this, every department that submits their budget with whatever request they have, feel that they're necessary, and I agree. I mean, I don't think any of the things we're talking about here, you could argue that they're crazy. They're all positive things, but unfortunately, we're dealing with as we said 100 times, no growth in our grand list, and all we're doing is collecting taxes. So the next one is the chief's salary. We put in what percent increase? We put in the same increase for the chief and for the fire marshal
This-
as the rest of the
That would be
town.
a 5% like everyone else, which is 2
Right,
years.
2
of-
years, the 2.5.
2.5, right.
So taking 7,008 out of the chief's salary,
Is that the entire 5% increase?
If you
I
take,
think so.
if you take 7,008 out of there, you result in a 5% increase.
well, it's way more than that.
They were asking for much more.
No,
I
it's way
see.
more
It
than
brings
that.
it down to the 5%.
Oh, yeah,
Correct.
they were asking for way more than that.
Correct.
Oh,
The fire marshal's salary, I mean, again, he was hired, great fire marshal. You couldn't ask for a better guy. But he was hired with, it's a 30-hour work week, I believe.
Yeah, 25,
25,
depends on his case.
and a rate which he agreed to, and I'm just not, the last time we had a situation like this, a department, I'm not gonna mention which one of the board members requested a ridiculous increase. I mean, it was ridiculous. And the Board of Finance voted it down, and we basically did the same thing, put in. And then they appealed to the Personnel Committee, and they restored it. And he got this significant increase. And then, needless to say, you know what happened after that? This department head said, well, why aren't I getting it? And how come I don't get that? I work hard, I work overtime. So it's a bad precedent to set, when everybody else is getting 2.5%, to give somebody 15%. So again, this brings the fire marshal down to 5%.
Correct.
Okay. Volunteer incentives, that's an additional plan that they put in place. Now, didn't they just receive the tax?
Tax-
In addition to the original one, they also get certain ones get tax relief.
Correct.
Correct, if they live in
That's
town,
correct.
right. So that would be this would be a third rung of the incentive rope,
It's
so.
also an increase in membership.
Yeah. And then finally, at 5,000 equipment repair. That's part of the same.
That's a risk.
Town clerk election supplies, that's not a big deal. Land records, $1,000. Police operating capital, you remember
Some of the
that?
operating capital you can decide, sometimes you
Yeah.
buy that in the current year budget.
Right, 2,500. Tell us about, again, this public works part-time.
So, Warren has requested partly due to the fact that he eliminated a mechanic's position, and we've, over the years, have eliminated other positions. Has requested some part-time workers to help supplement his activities. And so that's what that request is. It's got some merit to it. I mean, the more part-time workers he has, the more work he can do. But it's a judgment call as to whether we think we need to fund that or not.
We don't pay benefits for part-time workers.
Correct.
And overtime, Tony, in Public Works, just,
Just
overtime?
bet, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Recreational, I'm sure you talked to Adam about this, part-time seasonal wages?
No, that's recreation.
Oh,
I
I'm
thought
sorry,
that-
all right, all right, that's just a general cut to the salary line items or part-time.
That's the part-time, right.
Now, whether or not that goes into the fitness center, so in other words, we're not cutting the fitness center out at this point,
That's how much it would.
We're looking
that's
for
how
a
much the
reduction.
Fitness center costs in,
Right.
for the budget.
okay,
Yeah, that's the net. So it's the expenses minus the revenues that were collected.
okay. Operating capital in parks? 4,000?
Yeah, so that's $4,000 for the mulch at the Peace Place Playground. Peace Place Playground. So I think we're hoping to buy that next month, actually, because Adam would like to get that in place before the season starts, because I guess there's some ruts in some areas he wants to fix. That's why I did that.
Okay, I'm gonna speak to Amity. We all met a couple of weeks ago, I guess, and, as you know, their increase is, 3.75, and basically, actually, we met 2 weeks in a row, and basically, Jim Zioli was there at the meeting, and basically, it came down to, there's no way. There's no way we're gonna approve 3.7% increase. It was settled on, Orange is gonna vote no regardless, because they're gonna vote no regardless. Bethany really doesn't wanna approve either, but we settled at the last meeting. I suggested 2.2%, and then it was decided to go with 2.49%. Now, whether or not, I don't know when we're meeting, I think the Amity Board is meeting Monday, and whether or not they go along with the 2.49%, I could say this, that Orange is against it, Bethany will be against it, and if they're gonna be going 2.9, I'm gonna probably be against it too, unless you tell me otherwise.
Sorry, did you say they were at 2.49 or 2.9?
We asked for 2.49.
Uh-huh,
I don't know if they're gonna come back with that, I haven't heard a thing.
okay.
whether-
But right now,
whether
it's
they're
down
gonna
to 2 point. The recommendation from the finance committee is,
We asked, well, they're still at 3.75, and they've got these other cuts which basically bring it down, but none of these have been implemented. So we told them to go back and come up with a 2.49%,
okay,
which, whether or not they're going to, we're gonna find out. Again, I think that gets determined Monday night.
it is Monday night, there's a meeting of the,
Right.
a regular meeting of the Board of
Which
Ed.
is how much, roughly?
About this. About
2:30.
2:30, something like that. So, I didn't realize, but I guess they changed the bylaw. And I thought that the finance committee, of which I'm a member, the 3 town members and 3 members of the Board of Ed, if we don't approve anything, they just go to the Board of Ed and they'll do whatever they want. Well, that's not the case. I guess they changed the bylaw. Because I said, if it goes down, if it's 3-3, I remember when this was written, and they had to put an ad in the paper and explain why. According to the superintendent, the bylaw is that if the 3 towns vote against it, the 3 Board of Ed members vote for it, we've got to keep meeting until we come to a meeting of the minds. And that could be a problem, because I know Bethany is just about dead set, I'm gonna be the swing guy here. Orange, forget, Orange never votes for their budget. And basically, I did tell them one thing, to be consistent, do not put in SROs. They've got 2 SROs in there at a cost of $200,000, and I said I would be a total hypocrite, based on my position that I've had with Beecher, if I went for this. I said, you don't need SROs at the 2 middle
This
schools.
is 2 additional,
1 at each middle school.
2 additional.
They're gonna
They
get.
don't have them now.
No, and the more interesting part, the Orange, they say they're gonna get a police officer from Orange to do it, And yet I've talked to some people I know who work in Orange and say, we don't need it. We don't need it. They've got a couple of guys that are security, and they have, the police department comes there and walks around every now and then. So I basically told them, any budget that comes in with $200,000 for SROs, I'll vote against. Now, whether or not they care, I don't know, but that'll be 3-3, and we'll never end it, because I'll never change my vote until they take that out. Again, we talked about security guards, which is the way everybody's going with. I mean, they're senior police officers. I've talked to people who have them in their schools, and they say they're tremendous, they're
So what's the
terrific.
difference in cost? I mean,
About 40,000 as opposed to about 120.
Okay,
Yeah.
for two?
No benefits, yeah,
Right.
yeah. If they even need it, if they even need that, yes.
Are the Board of Ed members of the Finance Committee representative of the 3 towns?
Yes.
Or not, one from each
Yeah,
town?
Pat Cardozo is ours.
Uh-huh.
Then there's the former chairman of the Amity Board. I can't remember names anymore.
Is it Chris Brow?
Chris Brow.
Chris Brow,
And Jenny from Bethany. Jenny.
I don't know.
Jenny who? Turner, there you go. I used to be good with names, I'll tell you. Old age is getting
Can't
me.
get Brad and Adam mixed up.
So anyway, I would have to say that Amity's gonna be, so we really do have power. I mean, I thought that the Finance Committee was advisory. They don't go along, all right, don't worry, we're gonna do our own thing, but it's not the case. According to the superintendent, until we have to hammer out an agreement where we agree on it, and until then, it's not gonna, but like I said, Orange will never vote for any, Orange, immediately when we said 2.49, they said no. They were asking for 2, maybe they'd consider 2.2. Bethany is teetering 2, he doesn't wanna go for a 2.2 even, so, we'll see. They're gonna meet Monday, and we'll see what they come up with, so, again, that's gonna be a moving target, Amity, so,
Right.
but if they wanna get their budget through, they're gonna have to come up with something, so.
I do want to make a point. So we updated at our last meeting the number of positions. So I just want to reiterate that point.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, since 2018, we've had 10 positions that have either gone to part-time or have been eliminated here in town. So that's, I'll go over them again, just so we're all in the.
yeah, go ahead.
So there's a parks director was eliminated. The senior clerk and the building official and the town clerk, that was eliminated. The lieutenant. And some of the groundwork for the earlier ones was in 16, 17, but it didn't actually hit the budget till 18. In 2020, it was a circulation assistant at the library, went to part-time, and the payroll clerk in finance was eliminated, and the work was split up to existing personnel. And then in the current year, the building official is now part-time, grants coordinator was eliminated, a mechanic was eliminated, 2 police officers. So you can't say we haven't done our part to try to,
Or 2 suggested.
yeah, that's suggested currently.
So with those positions, the responsibilities and duties picked up by another
The
person
police
within
officers?
town?
The police officer ones?
No, the other positions.
Oh, the others, yeah,
I mean,
so
obviously
the
you're getting rid
mechanic,
of positions.
the
you
mechanic
can't-
will most likely be, so what we did was we had an open position in Public Works, we hired a mechanics assistant slash, a maintainer. So then we have a person who helps the mechanic when they're busy, when they're not busy, they go out and they work in Public Works with the crew.
Okay.
There may be a few things we have to sub out, but it was far more, efficient,
Cost-effective.
cost-effective to not fill the position, about $90,000 with benefits.
Okay.
The grants coordinator, the work was just, the 3 of us, we just added up to the 3 of us.
Exactly.
And,
It's a lot more work.
me and Betsy
So,
and Beth,
We
yeah.
make do.
Yeah.
And, building official is part-time, and, some of the, Chris received the appointment as our land use, person now. She does inland wetlands and TPZ work, so he doesn't have to do that. And we're looking to possibly get a part-time, blight officer.
And our building official is managing
Right.
just fine as part-time. He's been
So
able to
he's
do it.
managing fine as part-time,
It's going
and he
well.
said, right now it's working out well.
And you said the assessor is also going part-time?
Assessor, no.
No.
She's retiring, though,
She's
right?
retiring.
She's retiring. That's
August-
yet to be determined.
August first.
Yet to
We
be
don't, we haven't
determined, okay.
looked
And
at
where,
that
where do we
yet.
stand with, human services? We have a temporary,
We have an interim, yeah,
and they're,
Interim director is.
they're interviewing
Jeanette.
for it?
Jeanette, yeah, yep, going through that process
So are we still looking, or?
for,
She's,
We're in the process.
we're in the
So-
interviewing process.
Right. I think
She
the
was busy
personnel
last
committee
weekend.
will come up with a recommendation sooner rather than later, and
Right.
it'll go to the board.
Okay, so again, the Amity is, we'll see.
You know, I think every time we go through this exercise, the overarching message is that the town is very well-run. Tony, of course, does a great job, as do the boards. There's not a lot of fat in these budgets. Our big expenses are our school systems, which is what we have to offer in Woodbridge, that really brings value.
It's important, those are important.
Absolutely.
That's what we do,
And,
and we're good at it.
you know, every cut from the proposed, but not everyone, but some of them are really hard to do. And we've looked continuously at ways to increase our revenues. And the only way we have found is through some project at the country club. And I totally understand that this current proposal, the most recent one, has fallen through, and I commend Beth and the board for saying, this can't work.
It was very difficult,
It's very difficult.
but we had to do the right thing for the town.
Yes.
We're not gonna jeopardize the town.
Absolutely.
No
But
question.
I did ask Tony to look at, if we had gone ahead and done some senior housing at the country club, which is what other towns strive for. I'm sure, Matt, you've spoken to Jim Zioli in Orange. Senior housing on property like that with a lot of open space and maintaining our, you know, we're way ahead of the state in our open space, is the one thing we can do. I mean, we didn't do it in the past, but looking forward, to really help our tax base and make a difference in when we look at the budget. And I asked Tony if he could just tell us, if we had done the projects, like if we had done a few years ago with Toll Brothers, that's the one that we had, what effect it would have, so people understand, because should it come up again, I think it's really important for people in Woodbridge to understand that that's our opportunity to make a difference in our budget if it's done well, and if it's done in a way that preserves open space and the character of the town, but gives us some tax relief, which we can't find anywhere else.
Yep, so the proposal at the time was for 80 units for $5 million, and that would, of course, pay the debt off. And we'd be probably collecting, if half were built, be about $600,000 in taxes, $700,000. And
That's
it'd
which
be
one? That's the,
Toll Brothers one,
okay,
And
That's
it-
with half
and-
built,
yeah.
but and no
Right.
debt.
and no debt, right?
right.
I think one thing I learned from this exercise is if you're gonna hire a contractor, you gotta hire a real contractor. I mean, we ended up with someone who unfortunately got brutalized in the process and brought in three different outfits to handle the construction end of it. And the third one, which seemed like the strongest of the three, turned out to have his own ideas about not wanting to keep the land as bought. He wanted to be able to sell pieces of it. And I said to Beth, when I got here tonight, I said, why didn't they say this at the very beginning?
Would've
We
been
could have saved a
helpful.
lot of grief and arguing, and my God, I don't know where this came from. So I don't know if maybe they just wanted out. Maybe they just decided they wanted out,
We
so they
don't
put this ridiculous situation in, knowing that we would never accept it, so. But,
I think it's just important for people in town to understand, when you make choices,
Yeah.
there are consequences.
Yeah.
And,
Exactly.
you know, this is certainly, there's not a lot of fat in this budget.
no.
And we're looking at, you know, substantial reduction to what's requested for Beecher Road School, which is one of Woodbridge's, you know, gems.
It
So
is.
it's tough. It's a
Exactly.
very tough budget.
Yeah, the
Okay.
Board of Selectmen left it as it was, as they
Mhm.
presented, because we thought they did a good job.
Well, this is preliminary. We're not,
I know, I'm
not
just saying.
cast
Yeah,
in
you don't
stone.
make
Just
We're just,
reporting.
we're just
Just
getting
reporting.
under 1%.
Yep.
Now, whether we decide as a group, we're gonna go 1.25% or it's entirely up to, I had somebody say to me, you know what this town needs, a 10% tax increase. Then everybody will take notice of what you do, he said. You know, keep cutting and cutting and give them a 10% tax increase, see if that makes them notice. I said, that's all we have to do. So,
I have an automatic car starter.
yeah, right, that's
So
right.
it's okay. Go for it.
All right, so Tony, the last two items, so we can end this and discuss the, where we wanna go from here. Program cuts 30,000?
So if you're gonna, get below 1%, you probably need another $30,000 in cuts.
Okay.
And
then
that's
current year
that includes
contingency.
using $50,000 in our current contingency
Right.
to
Well,
fund
we're
some
looking
stuff.
good, we're looking good on
We are,
contingency.
we are.
And I said that, which means we'll have a blizzard
Yeah,
Saturday.
thanks to Pablo.
So, every time I say
Are they
that.
predicting something for Friday?
Nah,
Maybe? No, it's off now?
Maybe
I'm afraid to look.
we're gonna get brushed by something, so.
Right,
Okay.
we're doing well with contingency,
Yeah.
yes.
So hopefully, and again, these are areas where, once we get closer to the budget time, we can say, okay, you know what, we're gonna have X number of dollars in contingency, let's pay this capital item off, so it's not in next year's budget, and let's pay that capital item off, and maybe we do a Lucas device or something, or whatever. But, until we know where we're gonna be with contingency, and the whole key to that is overtime in Public Works.
Public Works
So-
and police.
I think a lot of towns are gonna be having this conversation, because they've gotta be doing well with sand and salt
Yeah,
and all that stuff, so.
so that's a point, if, that'll equals, I think I put it on there, 0.91%.
Right, so, right, if, these items totaling $637,000 will get us to a 0.91% tax increase. And again, it's a moving target, because Amity, I don't know what Amity's gonna end up paying.
Right,
We might be in June still talking about Amity, because I don't know that we're gonna agree. So with that, I mean, we can have Tony book these for now, and,
I could just keep them and then you could
Right.
not make a
and
decision
then next
until-
Thursday, if
yeah.
you wanna have time to digest them, we could come next Thursday and decide. Next Thursday, we have to decide what goes to the annual.
Well, Karen, what's our
budget
deadline
hearing.
on the printer, you think? Would you say? Is it, I mean, next
Printer?
Thursday would be ideal.
For the
right?
budget hearing.
For the hearing, but if, you know,
She knows there's gonna be a test.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared.
We have to count backwards.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
And just go back to the Amity situation. Is Amity articulating for you what these incremental decreases represent? Is that being discussed?
What they're gonna cut?
Yeah,
2 pages. I'll give you some.
no, but is this the 2.2 versus the 2 point?
Well, they get, on this sheet, they get it down to 3.14.
Right.
And then they really go with some huge hits to get to a 2.28.
Okay,
All right.
so,
I'll give you some highlights, okay?
yeah.
Chinese teachers. I mean, they got a lot of Chinese teachers. I don't, with all that's going on, maybe
You
they
mean
don't
people
wanna.
who are teaching Chinese?
Oh, yeah, Chinese
Okay,
instructors.
I just wanted to make the.
No, they're actually getting rid
No,
of it.
Stop, I made the point,
Chinese
we
teacher,
don't have to go
Chinese
into it.
teacher, I'm giving you the big ones here. Chinese in the world history texts, which is a new edition that they could put off. Facilities maintenance, 20,000, facilities maintenance, 40,000. It's sidewalk and concrete repairs and pipe insulation replacement, those are big ones. Amity in Action, which is a technical program that they wouldn't publish. Now, they also, if you remember, they're talking about instituting 800 iPads, 800, for the kids to all, you know, I said, that's an awful lot to do in 1 year. So, security grant funds, rentals to lease the space at the firehouse or JCC or something. Let's see, open choice grant funds, 31,000. Refurbished modular classroom, 15,500. Again, none of these are earth shattering. Accordion wall computer lab, computers, reduced requests from 30 to 15, $12,000. Cheerleading practice mat, $6,000. Facilities maintenance from capital, which is building controls, 19,900. Digital whiteboards, 9,000. Then come the big items. SRO. These are not. These are.
All right, well, so I get the idea, so there's a balance
Yeah, yeah,
of
yeah.
technology, academics,
Yep.
personnel, and phone,
Right.
so to speak.
Yep.
Okay, all right, that's kind of what I was trying to
There's a lot of
understand.
stuff.
Okay.
There's a lot of stuff.
Okay.
And
Matt,
it-
one of the things the superintendent was talking about was how much in need of a technology.
Right, that's something we
The
said,
the IT upgrade.
so you don't get hacked. I think that's something we talked about leaving.
You mean on
Okay.
cybersecurity?
Yeah, this whole
Yeah.
cyber, because I was a little concerned
Yeah.
when we were asking, well,
No, I think
what
that-
would happen if she didn't get the money? She
That's
sort
something
of
we decide, I think. to leave.
Intimated that.
Well, you know what happened, well, it doesn't matter, but yeah, cybersecurity is an important issue.
But believe it or not, a lot of, I mean, I'll tell you what, in this 64, 79, 100, like $120,000 for Chinese instruction. So they're really pushing, I guess all they have is Spanish and Chinese.
They don't have French?
I don't think so.
French is out?
I think so. I think so.
Say two.
So again, we'll see what they come up with, but,
But it's not that in a 21st century high school, you don't want children to learn Chinese. We
No.
do want them to
Right.
learn
Right.
Chinese.
Yeah.
And that's my point
Well, they
about
have-
these
still
are,
have Chinese.
these are tough,
Right, these are tough
Decisions.
decisions.
and it's a shame
but
that
this
we.
64,000 is to eliminate Chinese in the middle schools. They're gonna get it in the high school. They want to put it in the middle school, so that's 64,000 that's in there, so.
They should put it at each.
So again,
There was
anything,
no discussion about the 800 iPads, was there? I
oh,
mean, I
yeah.
just-
Yeah. So I don't know, is anybody absolutely, again, we're just gonna consider these, and we're not gonna be married to
No,
them at this point.
Not at this point, you
Right.
have until,
Can I ask, I'm
Yeah, go
still, I'm
ahead.
a little confused about the 25,000.
April 7th is when I would want to put it to the printer.
What's that?
so.
April 7th.
All right, so
So we
next
need-
Thursday, we have to firm these up.
So, and this one be after, after next Thursday.
Next,
2 weeks.
Two
Yeah.
weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah.
So,
I can't be here next Thursday.
No, it's the Thursday
It's
after.
Thursday
It's the
after.
19th
The
is the
19th.
Board of Finance
I won't.
in my
make the
calendar.
19th.
Yeah, it's the
All right.
19th,
Yeah.
yeah,
The
that's
19th.
correct.
Regular, right.
Yeah.
The 19th. Go ahead, Tom.
so the 25,000 part-time seasonal wages under recreation. I was just a little confused because you also said that was the
Well-
operating budget for the,
It is.
for the gym by
They
coincidence.
have,
It
they
is.
have
It's
a
not by
lot of
coincidence.
people in that.
It's not by
that
coincidence,
they
that's the,
employ. A lot of people that they employ.
And I was just trying to figure out, because I think that we
I'm
were
gonna get
talking
you,
about part of that
between-
increase. that was
Between
supposed
now and next 2 weeks from tomorrow, I'm gonna get you the possible deal at the JCC, which, I mean, if you really wanna work out, there's no comparison, but I'm gonna get you what they're offering. They've cut it in half, it's dirt cheap.
And can I just ask, do we know what percentage of the people who use the gym here, how do I put this kindly, the age of the average age of those people? Because, I mean, I just know that the JCC has the silver sneakers things, and so if
Yeah,
they are,
right.
if a number of members are eligible for that, and I don't know whether they are or not, they
Yes.
get the JCC for free. I
The
mean,
answer
you
is
don't have
yes.
to work on that.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
So, again, just back to the recreation thing, because I remember that part of the increase in the part-time wages was minimum wage.
that's true, that's correct.
Okay.
But I'll get the, what they're offering. Because, you know, the other part of this, which I think is critical, is that they want to be in the old firehouse on top of it all. I mean, they want us to renovate space for them. I mean, how much are we gonna spend on a program that we're just losing our shirts on? It's just, it comes to the point where I have to say no. You know, I said that about the country club pool, and I'll say it about this. It has to become a point in time where you have to say no.
And I'm just gonna ask a question that, based on what you said, Matt, which is until the finance committee at Amity agrees to put something to the Board of Ed, nothing happens.
Yeah.
What does that do to our budget process?
It's a good question. I'm hoping we can hammer something out up there, but, like I said, Orange is out. There's no question they're out. And Bethany is just behind them.
And presumably, because when we had that little debacle over at Amity with the most budgets ever turned down in the referendum, presumably, worst case scenario, they just keep the budget from the previous year.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, we did
That's correct.
19, because I was a registrar
I
of voters at the
remember
time.
that.
19 referenda.
Those circumstances were very different.
No, I'm not,
And
I'm
much
just,
more
I'm not
volatile
suggesting
and-
anything like that's gonna happen, I'm
No.
just
You
trying
know.
to figure out, the worst case
No, but you
scenario is
know-
they still have their
I
budget.
believe they
in line.
used the budget from the prior year and,
And then, right, and then we got permission from the, I think that then Attorney General, to just stop having referendum because there was a new one that had been
It was a
approved.
much more, yeah, there
So.
was evil ether in
Yeah.
the air. Don't
No,
go
but
there.
from
Don't
our
go
budget,
there.
all I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
from our budget perspective, if a worst case scenario, we have a way of putting together a budget even if it
Oh, yeah.
just doesn't happen.
But-
Orange, there is some point where Orange will vote yes.
Yeah, if they come down to next to nothing, I mean, maybe 2%, maybe 2%. But the member of the Orange, Finance Department who sits on that, he's told how to vote. He doesn't have the leeway to make a decision that he thinks would be acceptable, but again, I mean, it's just, they've gotta come to terms with the fact that, and I said this before, I'll say it again, for the first time in the history that I know of, I mean, Woodbridge voted something down in Amity. And now there's a ruckus about that artificial turf field, which is too late. I mean, the contract's been signed, the referendum's been passed, but this could evolve into Woodbridge voting no on the budget if we go to referendum, because a lot of people are upset about it. You know, we get a terrible turnout, that's the only thing. The referendum, I think in all three towns, if we get 1,100 people voting on it, it's a lot. But if they hear that the three towns are against the budget or not in favor, I don't know what's gonna happen. You know, we don't want that to happen. And I told them that at the last meeting, is the last thing you wanna have happen is that we have to tell the townspeople that, but she said, you can't do that. You're gonna have to hammer out a budget. It doesn't go that way where it's 3-3 and the Board of Ed makes the budget up, so it should be fun.
And back to Ellen's point about there are consequences to how you vote, it's that we need, I think we're gonna need to make
Yeah,
apparent in the town meetings that,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
failure to show up at
Well, it'll be well, and you know, if it becomes a battle, it'll be well publicized. You know that for fact. It'll be well publicized that the towns are not in agreement with the budget and so forth and so forth, so. All right, so then we'll just kind of keep these in the next Thursday, 2 Thursdays from now.
Yeah.
Maybe if anything else pops up, maybe we'll have a better idea. That'll be,
Well, a better idea for
maybe
Amity,
the snow season will
hopefully.
be over and
Yeah, and
you can give us a figure on the,
Yeah. I could.
on
You
the,
said that word again.
contingency.
Yeah.
I'm feeling cocky now, so,
Yes, I could.
okay.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, see you in a couple.